This is NMC Rough Cuts, presented by Bell. This podcast series is brought to you by the National Music Centre. We're a registered charity that amplifies the love, sharing, and understanding of music from our home here at Studio Bell on Treaty 7 territory in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I'm Graham Lessard, music producer and recording engineer at the National Music Centre. Each episode of NMC Rough Cuts explores the songwriting and recording process of a compelling Canadian artist. Learn how an original song comes to life over a one-day recording session at Studio Bell, and hear the story behind the tune. You can watch episodes at amplify.nmc.ca or listen anywhere you get your podcasts. If you enjoy the show, please take time to give a 5-star rating and review. It really helps us out. Hi, I'm Graham Lessard, and today I'm speaking with Pat Clifton, songwriter and musician. Hey, Pat.
Hey, Graham. How's it going?
Good.
Good.
So just to set the scene for anybody that's watching this, you're going to see that Pat and I are in different rooms right now. Pat's in the studio, the live room of the studio. I'm up here in the control room. We've been working in both these rooms, but so we could take our masks off and do this socially distanced. That's the situation.
Graham, I think we're doing a disservice if you don't start a podcast or read audiobooks, man. You got a like smooth voice, dude. It's like, dang. Okay.
The past day or so, we've been working on this track of yours called The Light. Mm-hmm. It's been a mixture of recording in the room you're in now and then a lot of work in the room that I'm in now. But maybe you can tell us a little bit about the song.
Yeah. Well, what's super interesting is how much I've been able to discover about the song since we started working even. Because when you start a song, you have this idea of what you want it to be and you get the demo going, and then it's not until you actually get in the room with other sets of ears to say, how do we make this tell the story that it's supposed to? So where the idea started was really something super basic but kind of existential at the same time. And it was the first line in the lyrics is, something's made of light and it's shining this way. And I think I can remember sitting just outside of my apartment, and there's a lamp right there, and I just had that thought, and I was like, okay, well, what would this sound like? And, lay a little piano down, and it kind of fleshed itself out from there. And like, what does that idea mean? Like, it became this existential search of like, well, what makes a light, but it's so far away that it feels close, but is kind of just making you think, make you feel like. And so it became this whole experience of self, I think, really.
Is that how you usually write? Do you start with something simple and see where it takes you, or do you have like a story that you want to tell before you sit down?
I think that depends. I think sometimes you have the stories in mind and you craft the sounds and the lyrics around them, and then other days you're just a vessel for kind of whatever needs to come through. Whatever story we're trying to tell comes from a place that's not necessarily ours, and it kind of tells itself. So it kind of depends on like what the day is. But this day, for specifically The Light, it was really easy to build the story off of this experience of just noticing this little light, and how is it so close and so far away at the same time.
When you said that you started with that line and then you wrote a little piano thing, it made me think of the classic songwriter question. Do you always start with lyrics, or do you write music first?
That's tough. Honestly, like my whole journey started with poetry before anything else. And so it's kind of a mix of both. Like I at first I was like, well, I need my lyrics, and then that will shape the music, and it kind of limited me. It put me in this box. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, you know what? You can do whatever you want to do. So what if I have this awesome piano piece, and what story can I tell through that? So it's a combo of both. But I think a lot of people get pigeonholed by one specific idea, right? Oh, I need to do the lyrics. I need to do the drums first. And especially in hip hop, drums are so important that I know most producers are starting with the drums.
Right.
I like to think that occasionally I can push some boundaries here and there. Maybe start with some piano.
I mean, it's an unfair question, as you say, because it's not like there's one way you do it time after time.
True.
I'd be curious to ask, your average music fan whether they hear the lyrics the first time round or not, because especially as you say, for once you're in the studio and you're working with all kinds of tools on the sounds, the lyrics kind of come to the front and then they go to the back, right? When we were working on drums or piano, and then I think especially by the end of the process, they better be at the front again because we want people to hear them.
Yeah.
But it's not like we're always paying attention to those primarily either.
Well, for so long, I think we've been told songs are these separate things, these lyrics that go with music, rather than sometimes having words operate as an instrument. And what I really like about this process that we did is that we specifically made sure that parts of the vocals fit in as instruments, right, as their own sound, rather than just being lyrics on top of music.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, hopefully at the end of it all, people will listen to these lyrics and hear the story. But even if you don't hear the words on a conscious level, I would like to think that the sounds that are around them are furthering the story as well as the words, right? Absolutely. You said something about producers starting with the drums, and that made me think of another question that I have a lot of the time. I work as a music producer. You're a music producer. The word producer means like a million different things. Maybe you can tell us like what producer means in hip hop, because I think it means a kind of a different thing in different genres of music. Absolutely. Specifically in hip hop, like I think it's turned into there can be beat producers, right? People who make the instrumental and they can operate as producers. And then you have people like Rick Rubin who will come into like a Jay-Z track or a Kendrick track, and they'll help shape what that full sound looks like, more than just help flesh out ideas that operate in the instrumental. Really take a step back and say, how can we make this sound operate at its best capacity in this form? And so I think in hip hop it can be kind of similar, because if I'm not mistaken, producer outside of hip hop is very much that, right? It's the Rick Rubins, it's the people who can step into a session and say, okay, what are we tonally looking for either on the project or in this song to make this like a whole experience? And the more that I listen to people creating these instrumentals in hip hop, I can see a lot of people stepping into themselves and developing their sound, which is really cool too. And that's what we were able to kind of explore on this whole thing, which I loved. Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me. I mean, I said it can be different depending on different genres, but I think you are more correct to say that it's different depending on the producer and, what their interest is and what their task at hand is. Because if you're focusing on drums, or if you're focusing on a musical arrangement, or if you're focusing on the way that somebody is singing, ultimately producing's getting things done, right? It's just trying to take a project over the finish line with whatever tools you need to use. It's interesting how rounded out is just like the word producing means just kind of coming in and like making something, producing it, like creating it, if that makes any sense. Like the answer is in the word, in the definition. Yeah. In the most basic sense. One of the things I've had a lot of fun with working together with you, and one of the things I like about this job is collaborating with people, in real time. That's not always been possible over the last year and a half. Have you been working with collaborators through COVID, or have you been doing more than your usual amount of work on your own? How has it impacted your creative process? There are cycles of lockdowns and quarantines here. Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's super ironic, because I think a lot of people who created with people wanted a way to now, connect with people that were so far away, and who knew that we'd be thrust in the situation where now everybody has to adapt. There's a lot of different programs that have recently launched that have allowed people, in Calgary to connect with people in Ontario and be able to collaborate almost like we're in a room, but obviously not. Yet we didn't have that kind of capability prior to COVID. So it's been like a weird blessing and a curse, in the sense that now I feel, even though I haven't seen people in forever, I feel almost more connected with everyone, if that makes any sense. But as far as like the writing and the creativity of it all, it was definitely an adjustment. Not being able to play shows and get that energy that you get when you stand in front of people, because after you play an awesome show, you can go home and you follow this spark of inspiration really anywhere. But not being able to have that, you kind of have to look into yourself, and you think, similarly to what we said earlier, is like, what story am I trying to tell? What am I trying to say? So it was a tough adjustment, but being able to like spend that time with myself, or collaborating
collaborating with anybody that you wouldn't normally have the opportunity to. I got to consider it a blessing. I'm trying to find the gratitude in things, you know?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have control over so much right now, so you can find the things you do and try and channel them into, you know, something positive, like making a new song.
Exactly. And the exploration you get to have when you're by yourself is unparalleled. I think often too, while we have to collaborate with different ideas and bring different ideas into things, but I think often we don't actually do a lot of reflection of self. And that ties all the way back to now this song. That repeating chorus is a question. Mm-hmm. Who are you? And as much as it was about me at the time, I wonder how many people have sat with themselves and asked, who am I? Like, really, who are you? Sure, you know, but do you know? I don't know all the time. That has to be okay, but we're asking that question in a way that I hope people are able to turn around and realize that we've been given this time to say, who am I? What do I want to do? And what mark do I want to leave when I leave?
So this song, The Light, is part of a longer work that you're, you know, working on right now, mm-hmm. Part of a full-length album that you're going to be continuing work on. It's actually going to be the first song, at least in concept. What can you tell us about that bigger piece?
I'm still fleshing out the idea as far as title-wise, but realistically, like it's this exploration of self, but also combating these ideas of identity with it. So this song is very self. I want people to sit back with it and think about their own situation. The next song on the project, as it sits right now, is one that is very specific. The people that will ask themselves, how does this relate to my story, are young black men, young black women, young people of color, because I want it to be an exploration of self through the lens of not only who I am, but the experiences that I have. Mm-hmm. And a piece of that reflection comes out in asking tough questions and bringing tough conversations to the light. So, see how I timed back there?
No. To go back to something you said earlier, Pat, you talked about writing The Light and wondering, you know, who am I? And this time that you've had, that we've all had to look inwards, looking outwards for a second, what's Pat Clifton doing in 2027, taking the long view?
Pat Clifton in 2027 is looking back at Pat Clifton in 2021 and giving him a big hug, like standing with him in a certain way, just right. Thinking, wow, like you know, you had all these ideas. How did they come to fruition? What did that mean when they came to life? I want to look back in the time between now and then and be able to say that, wow, those goals, having people ask themselves these deep questions, or hear something in my music that sparks that internal thought or gives them the drive and determination to kind of like explore themselves in a healthy way, I would be the most proud person in the world. I mean, ideally, the couple of Grammys, they're just a piece of the pie. But if that never came and all I ever had was somebody be able to say, man, I heard your song and like it helped me, that's my mission. That's what I ultimately want, is to be able to know that the things that I've created between then and now have sparked that kind of inspiration of self, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear you say, the first thing you said was that you'd give yourself a big hug. I love that, because it's like, it's tough being an artist. It's tough being in a creative field. It's tough, you know, especially during COVID. I think a lot of people are aware of the challenges those are posed, especially, like you said, for live music. But even aside from the pandemic, there are challenges to being an artist and a songwriter and a musician in Calgary, which is, you know, has a lot of amazing musicians, but yet isn't really necessarily, music isn't the first thing people think of when they think of Calgary. What are some of the challenges for being a creative musician in Calgary?
I think it's exactly what you said. It's like that perception of what Calgary is, and it's been curious because my experience is similar to that. I know a lot of artists who are phenomenal artists, who write these beautiful songs, and to me don't get the recognition that I think that they're really bringing to the table when it comes to music. I think in Calgary especially, there's been a lack of collaboration with each other, because we have Toronto, we have Vancouver, we have these spots that have produced these people who, in some capacity can be larger than life. And Calgary has that raw talent. But for some reason, I think that we get stuck in ourselves or in our own way, thinking that we should be that, rather than to allow each other the space to explore like what we can do individually. There's so much room on this road that it doesn't actually matter who's ahead or behind. Let's all make sure that we can all get on this road or in our lane and help each other move forward. I think a big piece of what is missing in Calgary, the recognition we deserve on a music level, comes down to us just working together a lot more, to be honest.
Wow. Yeah. What would you say to somebody who's getting started as a songwriter and a musician in Calgary right now?
I want to shout out someone I'm working with right now, a young man who is exploring music, and I work with him, and he's able to come to the studio and work out ideas and really start his exploration. Shouts out to my dude, he knows. But I think what I'd say is keep going.
Yeah.
That I've watched a lot of friends of mine downplay their music, their story, and it is tough to be a musician sometimes, to have this work that you think, I'm ready to show it off. No, I'm not ready to show it off. It needs to be better. It needs to be this. You can get in your own way, but then when you do, to not get the recognition you think you deserve, it can be super disheartening. So what I would say is, like, keep going. There will be times that you don't feel good about it. That's supposed to be part of the process. Finding gratitude in the times that are like the hardest, it's a tough thing to do, but I promise that perseverance will take you to where you need to be.
That's an amazing answer. Oh, well, I'll bet your dude appreciates that, and hopefully a lot of other people too. I know sometimes it can be startling to hear your words reflected back to you, but I've been doing, this kind of work for a long time, and it's usually my answer when somebody asks me a question like that too, is to say, just don't stop, right? Because the people I know that are still working in music are the people that have just refused to stop working in music.
Yeah. Well, 100%. I think that most times that giving up on it, that's what the dream killer is.
Yeah.
And even when I look at the position that you're in, and being able to come into a spot like this is a wonderful place. Literally across the street, we have a museum just full of these artifacts that you get to come in and work with and understand and flesh out. But that had to have come with its own set of or its own perseverance or its own kind of experience to get there, right? So kudos to you, man, for really, like, whatever experiences you had, sticking them out to put yourself in a position that you get to do something that you love. It's something that I think is really important to recognize, man. You're a cool dude. I'm not gonna lie. Like sitting in the studio with you for a couple days, like I was stoked, man.
We're gonna cut that part out for sure, but I do feel pretty happy every day to walk into a studio with creative people and do this kind of thing. That's for sure. Feel real lucky.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I think we're going to wrap it up, Pat, but in a second we're going to listen to this song. So, maybe just take us into the track.
Okay. So this is The Light. The light is something that is close but so far away, whether it's the light at the end of the tunnel or if you feel like you're underwater and you can see the moon from the bottom of it. I promise you that it's not as far as you think. Ask yourself, who are you? What does that mean? What do you want to leave? Who do you want to be? How are you going to do it? Spark that creativity and trust yourself, and don't give up on the process. So here it is, The Light.
Pat Clifton, The Light. All right. Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Graham.
If you'd like to support music in Canada, please consider making a donation to the National Music Centre at studiobell.ca/donate. NMC is a non-profit, non-governmental, charitable organization. We amplify the love, sharing, and understanding of music, and we rely on donor support to create content online and in person in our exhibitions and performance spaces at Studio Bell. Thanks. Now stay tuned for some music.
Something's made of light and it's shining this way. I can hear you from here. A sound is all it takes. A lover in the night took a ship in its place. We come so near, 1,000 days away.
Take a drive in the middle of the night, 150 down the street. I'll tell you the truth, because the dead never lie.
And my, oh my, the light got a little too bright for my eyes, twisted my vision and led me into the night. A bad religion that sent me into the fight. I would have died for this. Lucid since losing it. True, you've been a shadow of truth since you was just a kid. Look at this. Don't wanna dig too deep to see your demons in the dark, but will you spark a riot for the lightning to start? What's in your heart? What's in your mind, body and soul? I find it scary to think that we may never know, but so it goes. Hopeless souls that roam around in the dark until the light show. Go.
If you like this show, you can check out more of the National Music Centre experience online by visiting amplify.nmc.ca. You'll find online performances, articles about Canadian music history, educational videos that connect science to sound, and much more. I'm Graham Lessard. Thanks to our guest today, and thank you for tuning in.